Don't mind me, my third eye is open. What if society has benefited the gay rights movement because society is primarily patriarchic? Stick with me, stick with me, stick with me. Okay, like, look, when we got gay marriage and gay adoption, those were the two big things. Let gay people be allowed to have children, and let them be allowed to have a marriage. If it sounds kind of crazy that the queer community was fighting so hard for something so traditional and rigid, and really deeply rooted in Christianity and Puritanism and all of that bullshit, right? But it makes sense because the gay community is led by white gay men. It's controlled by white gay men. So the needs and wants of white gay men, the primary recipients of that, like, out of everyone, this system needs white men to believe this bullshit the most. Okay, so they fall for this propaganda, hook, line, and sinker. They bring it into their fucking sexuality, and because of that, all of the other issues that we have had to face in the queer community has been relatively ignored. And not just, this is not just like political shit. It's not just about like black and brown queer people having to deal with police brutality and the rest of the gays just not giving a fuck because they're in their gentrified neighborhoods that kicked the black queers out. You know what I'm saying? It's not about that. It really is to be like, misogyny is deeply rooted in culturally as well, with how society accepts queer people. Like, I was living in the Philippines, and like, I could tell that trans women were, very much accepted, if not very much tolerated. They would have like fashion shows in the mall with trans women, and nobody would think about it. You know what I'm saying? But you don't see a lot of trans men. You don't see a lot of trans men being celebrated. You don't see a lot of trans men at all. In fact, you will see news stories of masculine identified women being accosted because they're so palpably queer. And I understand that the Philippines is also a very religious country, right? So it's like, how do you square this circle with this whole like very religious, somewhat tolerable, or we have some appreciation for trans women, but none or no acknowledgement of trans men? And I think it's just because religious breeds heavy misogyny. And what comes with heavy misogyny is just the thought that a man can do whatever the fuck he wants to do. And literally whatever the fuck he wants to do. If a man wants to become a woman, fucking great. That's awesome. But if a woman wants to become a man, it's like, bitch, why are you trying to join the club? You know what I'm saying? Like, it is a complete denial. So on the surface of it, it may look like this space accepts trans women, but really it's just respecting cisgendered men and their ability to do whatever the fuck they want. Like, it's still it's transphobic acceptance, if that makes sense. And I'm starting to see that everywhere in the queer community. I'm starting to see, like, I'm trying to understand, when we talk about the issues that trans people face and trans murders, we hyper focus on trans women. I'm saying, and I think I'm also saying this because I am like in my early stages of transitioning, but there is a stronger focus on trans women when talking about trans rights. That isn't really on the same level as trans men, because like, if we're keeping it a stack, like women's bodily autonomy and shit, that is a trans man issue. That's not a trans woman's issue. It's an issue for the people who have uteruses. Like that whole thing that people say when they're like bitching and moaning about trans people existing, and it's like, oh, we have to say people with uteruses now. That is because the people are trans men, but that vitriol is coming from a deep-rooted targeting of trans women. It's as if like, oh, these people want to pretend to have uteruses. It's a complete denial of trans women in the sense of like, these men want to do whatever the fuck they want, but it's also a complete erasure of trans Men, because we are the ones with the fucking uteruses. We are the people with uteruses. That's who we're talking about. But because this country and this world and our society is just so focused on men, and specifically the power and comfort of white men, even the white men that are doing shit they're not supposed to be doing in the eyes of this society, still gonna get a little bit of that power to do whatever the fuck they want to do. You know, the allowance is neutral. You know, the allowance doesn't give a fuck if you're gay or whatever. You are white and you were born with a penis at some point, so you're it. You know? Oh man. All right, I'm gonna close my third eye. Whoop.